Good morning, everyone. The topic of today's class is on dental amalgam. This has class been taken so many times, so I will focus mainly on examination and clinical point of view. So, if you see the previous year question paper, university question paper, the dental amalgam topic has been came so many times, and out of this essay has been came limited time. Only short notes has been asked so many times. Okay. So let's see how to present the paper. So when coming to the essay, it is the general topic which I have given, but depends on the content of the question, you need to modify it. So coming to the general content, you need to write first synopsis. Okay, synopsis followed by introduction, and in introduction, you can mention the history and various modification that has happened, and then definition which involves amalgam, amalgam alloy, and dental amalgam. Various definitions you can mention, and classification followed by composition, which consists of various phases. You can also mention. So next is the explanation of low copper, high copper, and various classification you mentioned. In this explanation, while explaining the reaction, you have to draw the diagram and equation because that also carry marks. Okay. So next is introduction, contraindication, advantages, disadvantages need to be mentioned, followed by properties. Properties is very important, especially the strength and creep, strength, physical and mechanical properties need to be mentioned, and manipulation. These properties can be mentioned in a table, and manipulation can be given in a flowchart kind of. Okay, last one is the clinical consideration, which may involve mercury toxicity, or how the clinic, you have to maintain a clinic to avoid mercury vapors, everything you can mention. So these are broad categories, but you need to mention whichever is applicable to the question which is asked. Now let's see some important points. First is the indication and contraindication. So coming to amalgam, indication itself is indicated for everything. The main contraindication will be because it is mainly dependent on the mechanical retention. So if it is a very large cavity, then you have to use something called pins. So it comes under complex amalgam restoration. So you can use for moderate to large restoration. Only it is contraindicated in minor restoration and aesthetic areas. That is the only contraindication of amalgam. Otherwise, it is used for everything. And apart from this, you can use as a dye material. You people would have studied in casting procedures, dye amalgam was previously used as a dye material, but now it is not used. So next is the advantage. The main advantage is that it is ease of use. It is very easy to use and manipulate, and it is inexpensive, and it has an excellent wear resistance. And for after restoration, during a course of time, there will be release of corrosion products, and it itself will seal the margins between the tooth and the restoration. It is also one of the main advantage of amalgam. Clinical point of view, if we see, most of the clinics are not now practicing amalgam. They have moved towards aesthetic restorative material because of the strength which is equal to that of amalgam, and the main advantage of other materials which have an aesthetic property. Okay, only in clinics like academics, like college oriented, and in some rural areas, they have been practicing amalgam because the patients can't able to pay that much expense for the composite or ceramic materials. So the disadvantage is that it is not aesthetic. It will undergo tarnish and corrosion, and some the main disadvantage which is due to the doctor. If he didn't examine the patient, didn't diagnose it properly that opposing tooth is having different restoration or the nearby teeth is having different restoration, and if you are giving amalgam and it leads to galvanic shock, that is also one disadvantage, and it will lead to discoloration of tooth structure. And the disadvantage of the amalgam itself is it is not chemically bonded, it depends on the mechanical retention. And the most harming disadvantage is the mercury toxicity. Because of the mercury vapor, a lot of things are going on saying to avoid amalgam is due to the mercury toxicity. So next is the advances is in amalgam. These are not recent advances. These are advances in amalgam. We will see one by one in detail. First one is the gallium based alloy. It was suggested as a substitute of mercury by Puttkamer in 1928. As I already mentioned, mercury hazard came because of certain problems which happened, which I will explain later in this class. So gallium was substituted instead of mercury. So later by Smith and Associates showed the potential use of gallium system. So what is the advantage of this system? This direct filling contains no mercury, and it is based on the ability of liquid gallium to wet the surfaces of many solid. And this melting temperature of gallium is at usually at room temperature. To suppress that, they added indium and tin. So various commercially brands were also available, that are Galli and Baster, Gallium GF and GF2. Okay. So composition for gallium based alloy is that you can see the liquid which has substitution of gallium, iridium and tin. So what is the amalgamation reaction in this gallium based alloy is that copper gallium and palladium gallium surrounding the unreacted alloy particles which are held together by a matrix of silver and indium alloy is formed. Okay, so properties, if you see for gallium based alloy, the 1 hour compressive strength is 343 megapascals, whereas 1 day compressive strength is around 533 megapascals, which is high, and tensile strength is also equal to 57 megapascals. The creep is also very less, and the dimensional change is also very less. So the advantage is that gallium based, we saw that 1 hour compressive strength itself is around 343 megapascal. So it has a rapid solidification, and it has a good marginal seal by expanding on solidification. It is a heat resistant, it has a high compressive strength and tensile strength, and it has a less creep value. And it as it sets early, we can polish it on the same day, whereas for the conventional amalgam you have to wait for 24 hours to polish it. So but there is a disadvantage with gallium based alloy, because it is a low resistance to corrosion. So corrosion products, sometime corrosion is important, the other time corrosion is not important. These corrosion products will seal the gap in between the restoration and the tooth structure, but it doesn't happen with gallium based alloy, and there is a moisture contamination leads to dramatic expansion, and it sticks with the material and the what the instruments used, so it will be messy, it will be very messy to work with. And one more main disadvantage is the high cost. Okay, so if it is a very expensive, then people will almost will go for composite or something, some other material, rather than going for gallium based substitute. So next is the consolidated silver amalgam system. It is developed at the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Silver particles are suspended in dilute fluoroboric acid, so to keep the alloy surfaces clean. So the alloy is in a spherical form, is condensed into a prepared cavity in a manner similar to that for placing compacted gold. How they place the direct filling gold, similar to that, they compact this consolidated silver amalgam. So one problem with this system is that insertion of this material is that alloy strain hardens, and so it is difficult to compact it adequately to eliminate the voids between the restoration and to achieve good adaptation to the cavity without excessive force. So the third one is the indium containing alloy powder and binary mercury indium alloy, liquid alloy. So Powell et al. Added pure indium powder into disperse phase high copper alloy and triturated with mercury. They found significant decrease in mercury evaporation from amalgam. So this was marketed as indisperse or indalloy. So there has been various studies. Just these are articles which are published. I will just go through this. So Eudalis also found that less mercury is required for mixing amalgam when it contains indium. So which concentration should be at least 10%. If it is there, there will be less mercury is required for mixing amalgam. So that is one advantage of indium. And the next is that indium containing admixed high copper amalgam exhibited a reduction in creep and increase in strength. Okay. So a 5-year clinical studies found that there was no significant difference in texture, like polishing, no need of change in texture if the alloy contains indium. And the amalgam prepared with indium rapidly forms indium oxide and tin oxide films, which reduce mercury release. And biological tests of indium containing amalgam showed that it is no more cytotoxic or hemolytic than standard ADA certified amalgam. So these are the advantages of so many proven studies shown that indium is very adding indium to the amalgam powder is more biologically it is not hazard and it also beneficial to the restoration. But because of the high cost and inavailability, we are not using indium containing alloy powder. Then the fourth one is the fluoride containing amalgam. Addition of fluoride to conventional amalgam was proposed by Innes and Eudalis, Sherman and Stone during the follow-up years. So the main disadvantage of amalgam is that it is not and it doesn't have an anti-carcinogenic property. So they incorporated fluoride into amalgam. So the mechanism of fluoride release will be dilution of salt crystals that are in contact with the cavity wall. So and by corrosion that liberates fluoride contained in mass. Example is that fluoralloy. So if we added fluoride to that alloy powder, it will be released as either as a corrosion product or it will be forms a salt crystal, and when it comes in contact with the cavity wall, it will release the fluoride and it has the anti-carcinogenic property. And the last one is the low mercury amalgam. If alloy particles can be closely packed together, mercury content in restoration can be reduced by 15 to 25%. So they incorporated more amalgam particles, they reduced the size and incorporated more amalgam particles and reduced the content of mercury by 15 to 25 percentage. And the one more recent advancement is the bonded amalgam. So when in case of complex cavity, they used to do with when mechanical retention is not available, they used to do with pin retained restoration, which you will study in final year. So they used to insert a pin in the tooth structure that will act as a support for the amalgam restoration. But later they, instead of using the pin, when the adhesion technique has been overcome, so Baldwin technique here, amalgam, they used zinc phosphate cement, unset zinc phosphate cement initially, followed by amalgam before the zinc phosphate sets. So similarly, denting bonding agents like 4-meta has also been used before placing the amalgam in the cavity walls. So the bonded amalgam plays an important role. So bonded amalgam bond is based on dentin bonding concept by Nakabayashi. The bond strength, which is important, you should know what is the bond strength of bonded amalgam. If they ask, you should say 12 to 15 megapascals. So bond strength achieved with the admixed alloys tend to be slightly lower than the spherical alloy. Okay, so for spherical alloy, which is has a higher bond strength when compared to the admixed alloy. And one more studies which said that teeth with bonded amalgams were less sensitive than the teeth with pin retained amalgams. So post-operative sensitivity which will be more for pin retained amalgams than bonded amalgams. So what is the technique involved with the bonding techniques? Either, so as I told, two techniques. Either you have to use an unset some cements prior placing amalgam, or you have to use an bonding agent. So self-etching primer is rubbed vigorously into the tooth surface in presence of plenty of water left for 30 seconds. Then the cavity is thoroughly dried with the cotton budget or air. Then thin film of adhesive resin cement is smeared over the cavity surface, and amalgam is packed rapidly into the unset cement and carved to give the proper contour. The picture depicts the packing of amalgam and this thing. Here I mentioned some adhesive resin cement. Adhesive resin cement is like similar to composite. After placing bonding agent, you can place a self cure. It is a self cure. It's not light cure. Self cure means chemically reacted reaction had taken place to set. So before it sets, you have to place this amalgam. So these are some amalgam bonding techniques. Let's see move into the side effects of mercury. The main two drawbacks of mercury toxicity are either allergy, and the next one is the toxicity. First, what is the allergy? This allergy, mercury allergy response represent an antigen antibody reaction marked by itching will be there, rashes, sneezing, difficulty in breathing, swelling, or other symptoms will be there. If it comes to contact dermatitis or Coombs type 4 hypersensitivity reaction represents the most likely physiologic side effect to dental amalgam. Allergy as such, amalgam as such is a allergic to people is very small percentage for some people only. So as an alternative material, you can go for some other materials like composite or ceramic. So after placing an amalgam material, if the allergy is not self-limiting, usually within 2 weeks, then you need to change the material either with composite or ceramic or different material. Okay, so there are three types of mercury, and most commonly which we involve is the elemental mercury, which is used in dental amalgam. Inhalation is the main source of toxicity, and it is absorbed by lungs and need long-term exposure or one large exposure. So coming to inorganic mercury, it is mainly found in folk medicine, and it can damage the kidneys, and long-term exposure can cause skin irritation, staining, and nerve damage. So organic mercury, methyl mercury, it is found in environment like it is more potent and more bioaccumulative than other forms of mercury. So the mercury which is very lethal is the organic mercury or methyl mercury. So it is more concerned with the environment. So what is the estimated daily intake of mercury? If we see the mercury vapor, which is intake, which is very less, it is around 0.12, and the if you take with the food and fish, it is around very less, 0.94. Okay, so inorganic mercury is the one which is more, which is around 20 if you consume food, and methyl mercury has higher content in fish and food substance. So exposure to mercury can occur from many different sources, either with food or inhalation with the occupational hazard like or restoration purpose, or any water or environment surface. Okay, so WHO estimated the eating seafood once a week raises urine mercury levels to 5 to 20 microgram per liter, which is 2 to 8 times the level of exposure from amalgam. Okay, so mercury blood levels that were measured in one study indicated that an average level in patient with amalgam was zero point 0.7 nanogram compared with when compared with subjects with having no amalgam restoration is zero point 0.3. So this study had a significant effect because they told that patient containing amalgam restoration have an blood level had a higher mercury content when compared with the patients with no amalgam restoration. One more study in Sweden demonstrated that one saltwater seafood meal per week raised average blood levels of mercury to 2.3 to 5.1 nanogram per level, a sevenfold increase compared with associated with amalgam restoration. So this Sweden studies told that mercury level in blood increases more with food rather than with amalgam restoration. So the normal daily intake of mercury should be 15 microgram from food, 1 microgram from air, and zero point 0.4 microgram from water. So on the basis of epidemiological studies, blood and serum mercury levels correlate with occupational exposure and diet, whereas urinary mercury relates to the amalgam burden. The actual body burden at any time is a function of dosage and time to exposure. So long time exposure or short time exposure or a single large exposure, everything matters with mercury toxicity. There has been a threshold limit value which for exposure level to mercury vapor for 8 hours a day and 42 hours a week. So OSA guidelines, you people would have studied for this exposure, they have recommended this threshold limit value to be 0.05 microgram per millicube. So it says that normal mercury level in the urine, it will be 0 to 0.02, whereas maximum limit should be 0.15 milligram, and in the blood it should be 3 microgram per liter. In most of the dental office, mercury vapors levels will be below 0.05 milligram only. So the tolerable mercury concentration in urine and blood is that 25 microgram per millicube. In average, 75 microgram per liter in urine and 10 nanogram per milliliter in blood. So the lowest air threshold for general public of 1 microgram per millicube results in a concentration of 15 microgram per liter in urine and 4 nanogram per milliliter in blood. Okay, don't confuse with various values, everything. You just wanted to know this normal mercury level in urine and blood and the maximum limit of urine and maximum limit of mercury level in urine and blood. And there has been various studies which told that the patients with amalgam restorations were monitored with mercury vapor detectors over 24 hours period. The amount of vapor involved was calculated to be 1.7 microgram per day. And three other studies have also confirmed that this mercury exposure for patient with 8 to 10 amalgam restoration ranges with 1 to 1.4 microgram per day. So if the patient is having multiple amalgam restoration, or if we after a restoration, if you monitor the patient for mercury vapor detector, it comes around 1 to 1.7 microgram per day only. So this toxic reaction you should know. So in case of the question asked is mercury toxicity, you need to write this flowchart and this diagram. This is mentioned in Studio One textbook. This you people need to mention it. Okay. If the mercury level is 3 to 7 microgram per kg, it is a lower dose limit. Okay, so there won't be any toxic reaction. When it is about 500 microgram, there will be paresthesia. When it is about 1000 microgram, there will be ataxia. When it reaches around 2000 microgram per body weight, joint pain started occurs, and about 4000, there will be hearing loss, and beyond which it will lead to death. This is the same which represents the mercury level. Like 4 is considered as the 4 microgram is considered as the upper limit beyond which symptoms occurs. So after 2500 500,000 microgram, there will be what are the symptoms will occur, which is mentioned in this diagram. So this is the poisoning which causes what are the symptoms, what are the problems causes animatic picture. So Minamata disease, this may be new to you people. This came into existence after the Minamata Bay incident in Japan in 1952. What happened is that a local chemical plant disposed of its methyl mercury waste, which is nothing but organic mercury, into the nearby bay, containing the shellfish and causing toxic levels of mercury in the fish eaten by the local population. So the excreted waste from that chemical plant contaminated the river or something nearby, and those people who adjacent who ate the fish from that River had these symptoms like ataxia, convulsions, numbness in mouth and limbs, constriction in the visual field, and difficulty in speaking. So this is the flowchart which represents what happened, and the children are suffering from this disease after eating these contaminated fishes. So after this Minamata disease, several countries, the Minamata Convention has happened, and every country is participating to reduce the mercury exposure, either from the environment or from the dental office. Also, India participated in 2014 in this convention, and after this convention, in New Delhi, they conducted various dental organization. They wanted to reduce the mercury exposure in the clinic also. The slowdown of usage of amalgam is being reduced. So till now we saw mercury toxicity. Now we go. Let's see how we'll avoid. How we will. What are the sources of mercury exposure in the dental office, and how to avoid this. So amalgam as a raw material is being stored for use like a pre-capsulated. If you store amalgam, that itself is a source of exposure. Either a pre-capsulated, if the capsule is damaged, it will also be a source of mercury exposure. Mixed, if you mix the mercury during trituration and intraoral hoarding, there will be a mercury exposure. And amalgam scrap, if you used more, what to say, if you took more material but only limited material is required, the other material will be act as an amalgam scrap, and it will also used and it will also be a source of mercury exposure. Amalgam undergoing finishing and polishing operations. After 24 hours, if you finish and polish, outer surface will started removing, so it will release mercury exposures. When removing amalgam restoration, when going to replace or broken failure amalgam restoration, when you remove the amalgam restoration, it will act as a source of mercury exposure. So the amount of mercury released during manipulation of amalgam, if you see, there are the various procedures, and how much amount of mercury is released, you can see. So dry polishing, if you polish it without any polishing paste or water, the mercury exposure is more. Okay, and the next one is the removal of amalgam restoration. Under, even if you use high volume suction under water spray, it will be more. The mercury exposure will be around 15 to 20 microgram. So we need like in PP, how we are using PP for treating the patients during the corona period. You need special equipments for office personals and dentists also while removing amalgam from the patient's mouth. Mainly it is for when there is multiple amalgam restoration and keep on doing more amalgam restoration, it is mainly essential. So coming to the risk to dentist and office personnel, we have to store the mercury in unbreakable or tightly sealed containers. So clean up any spilled mercury immediately, and droplets may be picked up with a narrow bore tubing connected to the bubble trap to the low volume aspirator of the dental unit. By using the aspirator of the dental unit, you need to collect the droplets which is on the floor, and it is collected by a narrow bore tubing connected with a bubble trap. And storage location should always be near to the exhaust vent and that carries air out of the building. So we need to use a tightly closed capsules during amalgamation, and reusable capsules with a mechanical amalgamator should have a tight fitting cap to avoid mercury leakage. So salvage of amalgam scrap and store it under water that contains sodium thiosulfate. Okay, if you come to the department, come to our department and see, there will be a separate container to store amalgam scrap has been kept, which contains, the main content is the water, glycerin and sodium thiosulfate. Here which is mentioned is photographic fixer is nothing but to develop the film they use some developer fixer solutions. The fixer contains sodium thiosulfate only, so they have mentioned photographic fixer can also be used. And use of conventional dental amalgam condensing procedure and manual mechanical should be used, like manual condenser or mechanical condenser should be used, but we should not use the ultrasonic amalgam condensers because it will lead to more mercury exposure. And we have to, the clinic should be in a well ventilated place and avoid carpenting and in dental laboratories. Decontamination of carpet is very difficult. If mercury is spilled over a carpet or something, it is very difficult to decontaminate it. And if mercury comes in contact with skin, contact allergy may happen. The skin should be washed with soap and water immediately. So amalgam scrap and materials contaminated with mercury or amalgam should not be incinerated or subjected to heat sterilization. During the intraoral placement and condensation procedures, rubber dam and high volume evacuation should be used, and adequate water spray and suction should be used during amalgam polishing and removal. Eye protection, a disposable mask and gloves are now standard requirements for dental office. So the spent capsules and mercury contaminated cotton rolls and paper napkins should not be thrown out with regular trash. They should be kept separated and closed in a plastic bag for separate disposal. Perform yearly mercury determination on all persons who are working in the dental office and determine mercury vapor levels in operations periodically. Alert all personnel who handle mercury, especially during training, of the potential hazard of mercury vapors and the necessity for observing good mercury and amalgam practices. So these are the various sources of mercury hazards in a clinic, and you should know from where and all mercury, what are the sources in dental clinic and how to avoid this. So regarding the waste management, as I already mentioned, everything should be kept in a closed container, tightly packed, and it should be placed. The waste disposal should be separate for amalgam. So it's not should be contaminated with the every other waste. It should be placed and separately kept, and it should be separately disposed. It should not be incinerated or it should not be heat sterilized. So last but not least, the future of amalgam. Operative dentistry is on the threshold of post-amalgam age, like which is based on tooth-colored restorative material. I don't know now you people will practice amalgam in this UG, but after once you go out to the clinic, I don't know whether you will practice amalgam or not. At that time, amalgam used depends on, as I told, depends on rural areas and the patient who has which who can't afford only go for amalgam. So we should seek alternatives if such alternatives can meet the health needs of our patients equally well or better. So as other materials and techniques improve, the use of amalgam will likely continue to diminish and it will eventually disappear from the scene. Yet amalgam continues to be the best bargain in the restorative armamentarium because of its durability and technique insensitivity. So what we have seen in this class is that how to represent a paper, give write during the exam. Like if it is an essay, you need to write about the synopsis and various contents depends upon the question. And we talk about advances in amalgam and the mercury toxicity and how to avoid the mercury exposure. What is the mercury level which causes the signs and symptoms in the body? Okay. Regarding the assignment, I will give a separate classroom link attached to the assignment link, so you people can submit that. Regarding the Minamata convention, which I told, no, if you want to read more about that, you can go in Google and search. It will be there will be more regarding what are the happenings have, like when India joined, what are the activities have taken during the convention. Everything will be there, which is of clinical knowledge only. It is not more of academic or examination point of view. Okay. So amalgam will probably disappear eventually, but its disappearance will be brought about by a better and more aesthetic material rather than by concerns over health hazards. So when it does disappear, it will have served dentistry and patients well for more than 200 years. Thank you.